In previous session, we have discussed about the functions. Okay, there's a two type of functions we have discussed. The first one will be the inbuilt function. The second one, the user defined function. And now in this case, if you're gonna discuss about the inbuilt function, so this is some examples what we have learned. The first we have already discussed about the alert as well. Okay, this is the one example of the inbuilt function. Either we can also use a prompt. Okay, so this is another example to understand the inbuilt function. These are the functions which is already defined in your JavaScript. Okay, just you have to call this function using the set of parentheses. Okay, you would be able to execute those functions. In case of user defined function, just you can simply use this particular method. This is a syntax. This you have to use a function keyword and the func name, what function name you want to define. After that, you have to use a set of parentheses again, and inside this particular expression, just you have to define the function statement. Okay, what statement you want to define, or either just you can simply pass the optional argument as well. So this is a syntax what we have learned until yet. Okay, to define your functions. Now the point is there's a one more type of functions we can also define, and that particular function name will be the arrow function inside the JavaScript. Okay, and what are the similarities between the both the functions? Okay, and why we want to use the arrow function as well. So the first of all, this is a one function we have already learned, right? So if you want to define a function using the normal method, just you have to define your function using just the function keyword. After that, you have to define the function name and then pass the number of arguments there, and you will be able to define your function using a normal method. And in case of arrow functions, just you have to use this particular arrow. Okay, and you can also call the arrow function is a shorthand function. Just you have to reduce the text. Okay, just you can simply define a function into the one line as well. And there's a multiple method to define an arrow function as well. Okay, but we will discuss only the basic functionalities of this. So let me take in one example to understand. Okay, this is another very simple and the syntax to create a function. Okay, and now it's called arrow function because it look like this, because you have to use an arrow when you're going to try to explain, when you're going to try to define a function here. So to define this type of function, let me take an example to understand this. So I have opened my Visual Studio Code. So let's create a file, and the file name I'm going to put function2.html. I'm going to create an arrow function inside this. Let's enter the boilerplate of the HTML and write your JavaScript inside the script tag. And now the point is I want to write my function here. Okay, what I'm going to do here, so write your JavaScript function. To write your arrow functions, what you need to do, just you have to use a normal basic expression. So I'm going to define my function here. Okay, and how many arguments you want to use inside the function, it's your choice. Let's suppose I'm going to pass two number of arguments, arg1 and the arg2. The either it could be anything, a and the b as well, right? And now this is a function you have defined, right? Inside, if you have to define the expression of the function as well using the arrow sign. And after that, you have to define the expression of this function. Let me define the expression. It could be anything. Either you can return the statement here, what do you want? Okay, so what I want to do, let's suppose I want to do the a plus b. So this is the one thing what I have written here, and now this is how you'd be able to define your functions here. Okay, now the point is, another point, I have defined a function here. When you are trying to define this function, it will return a one object, and you have to store that particular object into the variable. So I'm going to use the variable here. So this is a one variable I have defined. The variable name is func. But when you are trying to define a arrow function, you don't have to use a function keyword there. Okay, so that's the difference between the arrow function and the normal function here. Now let me move ahead. So now the next thing what we have to learn here, in case of arrow function, so if you want to call this particular function here, just you have to use a normal method. I'm gonna call this particular function. I can simply use alert. Okay, inside the alert, I'm gonna call my function here. Okay, and you have to pass two number of arguments, a and the b. It could be anything. You didn't define the data type of those variables. So 10 or the 20, I can simply define anything what I want. So let me save this particular script, and now I'm gonna go live using the Firefox. Okay, now let me launch the go live extension. You will be able to see your web page on top of this. This is one example to understand. Okay, when I'm trying to call, yeah, I'm gonna explain the one more time, not to worry. So what I have done, just I have defined my function. Okay, this is a one function what I have defined, a comma b. Okay, I have defined the argument of the function, and the function expression you have to define after the arrow sign. Okay, and now this is the expression. Arrow function will always return a value. You don't have to write a return keyword there, just you have written a plus b when your function have been initialized inside the func variable, right? If you want to call the func, just you have to use the same method. I'm trying to call my func here. Okay, I have passed two number of arguments, 10 and 20, and it will return the sum of both the numbers. And when I will get the return value, so I have simply put the return value inside the alert, and you would be able to see this 30 is the sum of both the numbers. Let's suppose if you want to do the another calculations, if you want to use, I want to print the square of number, just I can say I have to take a one number of argument, just you can simply use this method, a multiply a. Okay, or either you can simply use another method as well, a multiply exponent. Okay, this is your thing, what do you want, it's your choice, what do you want to do. Let's suppose I'm gonna multiply a. Okay, that's how the expression I have defined, and you have to pass a one number of arguments. Let's save this, and you'll be able to get the 100 here. If you're gonna change the numbers, 5, save. Okay, and you will get the save again, you will get the 25. That's how it works. So this is a one example to understand the arrow function, right? And now there's a more multiple method you will be able to see in case of arrow function as well. And if you're going to define the same thing using a normal function, so that's how you're going to define. Just you have to use a function keyword there. Okay, you have to define the func, you have to define your number of argument. After that you have to define the expression, return a multiply. So that's the syntax difference between the normal function and the arrow function. Using the arrow function, you can simply use the same thing inside the one line, but in case of normal function, you have used multiple line. And you can also define the multi-line statement in case of arrow function as well. And that particular part you have to do it yourself. Okay, just try to do all these things. I will share the one link along with the arrow function documentation. Okay, using this particular website, the blog, you will be able to understand all these things. Okay, yeah, when you're gonna discuss about the this keyword, you would be able to use the this as well. Okay, and multiple, I have received the multiple question privately. There's a multiple students have been confused until yet between the let and the where. Okay, but the point is actually where we were discussed. If you want to discuss about the where, okay, or let and the const. So if you will discuss about the where, so we were not using a where right now. Okay, that was an older method to define your variable, declaration of your variable. Right now we are using the let and the const. Okay, so if you're gonna discuss about the difference, so I'm gonna take in a moment. Okay, so I'll take you 2 to 3 minutes to understand the explain of this concept. So let's suppose what I'm trying to do. So actually in case of var, so it will always declare a global variable. In case of let, it will always declare the scope variable. Okay, and then in case of const, if you have declared your one variable at a one time, you would not be able to change the value of the const. So let's take an example to understand this concept. Let's suppose I'm going to define a value of the let. Okay, or either a is equal to 10. Just look at this. Let me zoom a little bit more. Okay, this is what we have done. So if you are able to define, just I have defined the value of a. If I want to print the value of a, this is a method. Okay, and you will get the 10 here. There's no issue. Now the point, I'm going to define a one scope using the set of curly braces. Okay, so this is another scope I have defined here. Inside this, I'm going to change the value of a again. Or either, let's suppose if I want to define the value of a again is 20. Okay, that's what I have done. I want to print the number, console.log. I want to print the value of a, and when I'm gonna print the value of a, you would be able to get the values 20. Just look at this, because I have defined a one scope, and now let is a scope variable. What does it mean? Because only inside this scope the value of a has been 20. Outside the scope the value of a is still 10. If you want to print the value of a again, just look at this, console.log. So what you will get here, you will get the 10. Value of the a have not changed in outside scope, because the value of a you only change inside the this scope. That's why you have to use let. So let is a scope variable. In case of var, if you're going to define var is 20, that's cool, no issue. Okay, if you're going to print the value of this, log b, just my bad spelling. Okay, so that's how it's work, guys. Inside the scope, if you're gonna use a var again, I'm gonna define the values 200. That's cool, no issue. Console.log, just I'm gonna print the value and 200. And now if you're gonna print the value of b out from the outside as well, what you are expecting here, so just look at this 200. The value of the b is also changed inside the outside the global scope as well. That's how the difference between the let and var. Okay, so we are mostly using the let to define your variable. In case of const, if you're going to define any variable using the const, okay, so you would not be able to change the value of the c later. Always you have to use the same value. Just look at this 100. Okay, you would not be able to change the value of c. It will give you the error because you have used a const keyword for that. So these are the three keywords you have to use to initialize your variable. Okay, so now in case of return function, if you are discussing about let me read. Can we have multiple expression in arrow function? Use multiple expression. Yeah, if you are talking about the multiple expression inside the arrow function, or either we can simply say multi-line arrow function. Okay, you can also create. Now, how you would be able to define this, so let me explain. So this is a one example to understand, guys. So hopefully you get the idea. So let me comment all these lines and let me explain the more thing. So comment and comment, that's cool. So here I'm trying to define another thing. What I'm gonna do, so let's suppose I want to define a one more arrow function, okay, using the multi-line expression. So multi-line arrow function, you can simply say. So how you would be able to define, so let me create a function named sum, or either you can simply took any function name. You have to define the function. Just I'm going to define the function using the normal method a or b. If you want to sum both the numbers, or either what do you want, the arrow function, this is how you would be able to define the function. And now instead of directly expression, just we have to define the body of your function into the curly braces. That's how this is a multi-line arrow function you can define. What do you want to do? Let's suppose you want to store the result a plus b. That's how it works. Okay, and now if you want to discuss about the multi-line, then you have to use a return there. What do you want to return? C. Okay, this is a method, guys, how you'll be able to understand the multi-line arrow function. Okay, now if you want to call your function, okay, which method you're gonna use, you can simply use a alert. That's cool. Or either you can simply write the result on top of the screen as well. That's your choice. What function you want to call, add, what arguments, I'm gonna pass 6 and 19. That's cool. Save, you will get the 25. So that's how the one example to understand the multi-line arrow function. Okay, any another doubt, guys? So this is a few example to understand the arrow function, guys. Okay, and you can also use multiple method. Okay, you can also create a dynamically creative function using the ternary operator as well. Okay, so this type of function you can simply define using the arrow method. So let me move ahead. So where's my ppt? Yeah, that's ppt. So this is one example to understand the arrow function. So now we have to discuss the switch statement. Okay, and now this is the one pretty example to understand the switch statement. If you're gonna use a if else, this is the first thing you have to read. A switch statement can replace the multiple if checks. Okay, because when you're gonna use a switch statement, it is strictly use the equality of the numbers, not a greater than and the lower than. I'm gonna give you the few differences between the if else and the switch as well. Okay, it gives a more descriptive way to compare the value with multiple variants and how it will look like. So let me show the syntax of the switch statement. It look like, so first of all you have to use these keywords, the switch and the case and break as well. Okay, because all three keywords are the important in case of switch. So a switch has one or more cases blocked for an optional default. Okay, and how it look like, so if you are able to see. Now, if I'm gonna create a one switch statement, so first of all, you have to understand the basic differences between them. Okay, so what's the comparison if you want to discuss about the if else, because you are already familiar with the if else, right? So if you have already familiar with the if else, this what is actually a switch. So if you wanna check about the third line, though, if you want to check about the testing on the expression, you can simply read all these things. if else statement test for the equality as well as for the logical expression, but in case of switch statement test only for equality. This is a one major difference you have to understand. Okay, where you gonna use a switch statement if you want to check the equality of the numbers or the operators. Okay, if you have to check the greater than and the less than and the logical expression, then there you have to use if else. And now more things here. If you want to discuss about the expression here, so if else statement uses a multi-line statement for multiple choices, but the switch statement using the single expression for the multiple choices. That's how you have to understand all these things. So let me clear the notations, or let me take one example to understand all these things. Okay, and now hopefully you're already familiar, guys, because we have to do practice in case of if else as well. So let me create a one program to understand the switch expressions here. To understand the switch expression, so we have to create a one program. So let me move ahead. So now this is a file, so let's create a new file, dispose the earlier one. Oops. Okay, that's cool. Create a new one, and here we will discuss about the switch.html. Or instead of that, I can simply create from here switch html.js dot we have to insert. That's cool. So okay, enter the boilerplate and include the file what we have written, script source and switch.js. That's cool. Go live. Okay, so let me add this file. Oops, we have to close this one. Okay, that's cool. So now we have to open the switch.js, and here I'm going to write my switch statements. What I want to do, let's suppose we have to use a switch statement here, and now to understand the switch statement, so first of all, let's take an example. Okay, the example could be anything. I'm going to define a variable, let a is equal to 2 plus 2. That's cool. This is the one very basic statement what I have written, or either you can simply take a number from the users. Let's take an example. You have to check the number when the number is equivalent to the 4, or we can simply check the number is greater than or too small or too large or the exactly. There's a multiple expression you can simply check. Or either if you want to find the grade of any user, there just you have to use the multiple things here. Now the point is, what I'm trying to do, I'm gonna use a switch keyword. Okay, after the switch keyword, just I have to define which value I want to identify in multiple cases. So I want to use a variable for that. Okay, just you have to define the expression here. And now inside the curly braces, we have to define the all cases of the switch. And the first case, let's suppose this is a keyword what I'm going to use at multiple time inside the switch. The first case what I want to explain, let's suppose when the value of the a will be equal to the 2, okay, or 3, what you can simply use. After this, just you have to define the colon. This is a syntax of to define your switch statements. Okay, this is the one case I have defined. When the value of the a will equivalent to the case 3, what does it mean? When value of a will be equal 3, but in the right now the condition is false. Okay, but just let it be for right now. What do you want to do? Let's suppose you want to do alert. What alert you want to do here? This is a very too small number. Okay, you can take any example to understand this. This is the one thing what we have done. Second thing, let's suppose I want to match a one more case. This another case will be when the value is equivalent to the 4, I want to alert for the exactly. Okay, this is exactly number have been matched. So just you can simply use this method. The one more case I'm gonna use the case 5. Okay, if the value is equivalent to the 5, sorry. Okay, hopefully I'm audible, guys. So here what I'm gonna define too large. Okay, these are the few example what I have done at the end. So now the point, there's a multiple probability, right? The value could be equivalent to the first case, the value could be equivalent to the second and the third. If any case the value will not be equal to the, there you have to use a default, right? I'm going to use a default keyword for that. Okay, on that time the default statement will be executed. So what I'm going to do, so I don't know, okay, such values, so just you can define what you want. So the point is, when I'm gonna save my program, okay, just I'm gonna save, okay, I will be go live there. So what result you are expecting here right now, just let me know into the chat box what values you will get on top of document when I'm gonna execute this statement. Okay, so this is a one thing you have to understand exactly. Okay, actually let me open the PDF one more time, and this is a one note you have to read carefully. If there is a no break, then the execution continue with the next case without any check. So this is a very important thing in case of switch statement. Okay, most of the time interviewer will ask this type of questions. If you will not use any break inside the switch statement, okay, the question could be anything. So they will ask you the next statement will execute without check this particular case. So this is the one thing you have to remember. So the point is, when I'm going to save this statement, the first of all, just you are getting the exactly, right? When I'm going to click OK, so you will get the too large as well. Just look at this. You will get the too large, but the switch statement, if you want to check, the value you have initialized inside the A is 4 and the value the is case 5. But this is the one thing you have to remember. If there's a no break, then the execution continues with the next case without any check. So that's the one thing you have to remember, right? So that's why we have to use a break in case of switch statement. Okay, you will get the too large as well. Okay, and you will also get the I don't know such values, because it will execute all the statements without any checks. That's how it works. So always in case of switch statement, you have to use a break keyword. Okay. So I'm gonna put the break here. Okay, and the last statement, there's no need for the break. In the first statement, I'm gonna use a break as well. That's how it works. I'm gonna save again. You will get the exactly here, and once you're gonna click OK, you will not, now it will not print the another value, because it will print the break and the break statement will be execute here, and you will not get. This is a exact method to use a switch statement. Okay, and now there's a multiple method you can also use in case of switch statement, guys. You can also use the arbitrary arguments operator, my bad. There's a one more thing you have to understand in case of switch statement, the grouping of the case. Okay, this is a one thing you have to remember. In case of switch statement, you have to understand the grouping of the case as well. What does it mean? So let's suppose if you want to check the multiple equality into the single statement, okay, what does it mean? So let me show. Let's suppose took an example. If A is equivalent to the 4, right? And now what I'm gonna do? So let's suppose I want to print the exactly as well as I want to print the too large. Okay, so that I'm gonna create a one another case 6. One the value is equivalent to the 6, then you will get the too large here. That's how it works, right? So now the point is what I'm gonna do here. So save, you will get the exactly. That's cool. No issue. What happen if I'm gonna insert the 6 here? You will get the too large. That's cool. There's a no issue. If I'm gonna put the 5. What happened? So it will give you the default statement here, and you will get the default statement. So that's how it works. Now the point is, if you want to group multiple cases, okay, now if you want to group the multiple cases, on that point just you have to define a one more case here. So this is called the grouping of the case. What does it mean? When the value is equivalent to the 5 or the value is equivalent to the 4, my bad, when the value is equivalent to the 4 and the 5, okay, on both case it will execute this statement. That's how this is called the grouping of the case. You can simply define here. Okay, so that's how it works. So now the point is, we can simply say this is a group the cases. Okay, so let me execute this program, guys. So just look at this. You will get the exactly right. Okay, the no issue. If I'm gonna put the 4 here, okay, still you will get the same result exactly, because on both condition it will execute the same statement. Okay, That's how it works, the grouping of the case. In the case is equivalent to the 4 or the case is equivalent to the 5. In both cases, it will give you the alert exactly. That's how it works. Now, there's a one more example to understand the switch. And the sometime, what are you gonna do? Let's suppose, if you want to define if you want to take an input from a user, okay? Once you have taken input from a user, so just you have to check the type of browser on this statement. Okay, so let me create, not to worry, that's cool. So I'm gonna take a one input from a user prompt, enter browser. Okay, which browser you are using, that's cool. I'm gonna take a name, let browser. That's how it works. Now the second thing, I want to define my switch cases. Inside the switch cases, I'm gonna use my variable browser, and after that I'm gonna define my statements. In the first case, let's suppose if my browser is equivalent to the age. Okay, you can take any browser name. What are you gonna alert? Or either you can simply write or print on top of console as well. Sorry. So you have got the age browser, right? That's a one example what I'm gonna return, and the break as well. The second case I'm going to define here, the point is you can also group multiple cases as well. Okay, the point, because when you are trying to check, there's a two things you have to remember, guys, in case of switch statement as well. The type of the data is also matter. You can simply check the string. Okay, you can also check the integer value, the number value as well. Okay, because if you have another data structures here, okay, type is matter in case of switch statement. What does it mean? If you're gonna check the equality, okay, between the numbers and the string, that will be work. If you're gonna check the equality between the different data structure, that particular thing will not work here. So right now I'm trying to use a string equality. Okay, what a user will give you the browser, so that particular data structure of that particular thing will be the string. Okay, and right now I'm trying to check the string here. Now it will try to check the equality between the string. That's how it works. So let's suppose if I'm going to type the multiple browser here. Okay, you can simply type anything. Let's suppose I'm going to type the Chrome, okay, colon. You can define multiple cases. If you're going to define the Firefox, what I have in my machine, and the last one I'm going to use the last case, Safari. Okay, that's in all cases. So I'm going to give it a one alert to the users. Okay, we support. That's fine. Give the break. The last case, default. In case of default, I'm going to give the alert. Okay, don't support. Spelling, not to worry. That's cool. Okay, so these are the things what I'm trying to do, and the break as well. The break, those are no need of the break as well. Okay, that's what I have done. Now the point, enter the browser name, right? So if I'm going to type the age here, just look at this. You will get that you have got the age browser. That's look like nice. Refresh again, enter the browser name, Chrome. Still match. Okay, we support the browser. Refresh again. I'm gonna type the Firefox here. Okay, we support. The same thing you will get again and again. Okay, if I'm gonna type the different browser, AD so what you're expecting here, you will get the don't support. Okay, that's how it's work, guys. Another type of the variable is also matter. So that's how you have to understand the switch statements in case of you. So this is a picture, and now the point is what you have written in your HTML sheets. Okay, just you have used the HTML tag. After that, you have used a head. Okay, inside the head, you have defined the title as well. Okay, so inside the HTML, these are the three main tags: the head, the body one. Okay, so all these are the important tags. You have covered both the tags and inside the HTML. Inside the body tag, you have defined the h1, the division. Okay, this is a division clause, the another division. So that's how you have to understand all these things. And now this is a HTML document. If you want to parse this document using the JavaScript, then you have to understand the same object into the document object model, because JavaScript would be able to understand this tree hierarchy instead of HTML. Okay, so the first of all, when I'm going to type the document again and again, so this is the actual document object model. So I have used document multiple times to fetch the log method there. If you want to get the element from HTML, so then you have to use the document there. What method you gonna use to fetch the element? You can simply fetch the element using the element name. You can also fetch the element using that ID as well. You can also fetch the element using the classes and the selector. So these all type of selectors you can simply use to fetch the element from your DOM to JavaScript. Okay, so just you have to understand the hierarchy. If you will fetch the element name as body, so in case of DOM, when you will be able to fetch the element body there, so you will get all the element inside your variable. Okay, what do you want to do? Let's suppose if you want to manipulate the text of p tag 1 to a different text, if you want to bold this particular text, if you want to change the color of this text, so you can simply do all these tasks using the JavaScript in your program. Okay, so you can also change the inner text. Just one thing you have to understand, in previous session I have used inner HTML, right? So what is actually inner HTML? So let's suppose if you want to fetch this particular p tag 2, so this is a inner HTML of class p2. Okay, what either this is the inner HTML of the class p tag as well, you can simply say. Okay, so that's how you have to understand. This is actually inner HTML what we have fetched in yesterday's session, using when we are trying to create the columns in our, we have when we are trying to create the rows in our table. Okay, using some JavaScript event on click event. So that's how it's work, guys. So you have to understand this hierarchy. Okay, and you would be able to fetch all the elements using the document method in your JavaScript. So let me move ahead. So what I'm gonna trying to do, so let me show you. Clear the notations what I have written here. Okay, that's cool. So let's close this picture, and now very basic structure what I'm gonna create here. After that you will be able to understand all these things. So inside the, I'm gonna dispose the web page. Let's open a new web page here. Okay, I'm gonna open the dom.html. You can simply take any name, it will not depend. Create another file, dom.js as well. Okay, and now on both the files on different directory. This is not a good method. I think I have already the dom.html, right? So that's cool. If I have already a one file, so just I can simply change all this inside the same file. Let's create the one more file inside the 2days directory, dom.js. That's cool. So the point is, so what I'm trying to do, let's suppose I'm gonna write my JavaScript inside the dom.js. Okay, and now this is a dom.html. You are able to see. I'm gonna click on go live, and you will be able to see the same thing on top of your terminal. That's how it's work. This is a p tag 1, p tag 2, and the heading. What I have written here, this is all these things you are able to see on top of your right side. What I want to do, let's suppose I want to insert my JavaScript. Okay, and I'm going to return my JavaScript inside a different file. So this is a file where I'm going to write my JavaScript. I have include my JavaScript sheet inside the script tag. That's how it works. Now the point is, let's suppose there's a multiple method. If you want to change the text of this particular element, or if you want to use any one of them elements, so what type of multiple method you're going to use here? So let's take an example to understand what you want to do. Let's suppose you want to change the text of p tag 1. Instead of p tag 1, you want to insert a different text, or either we can also create a different division as well. Let's suppose I'm going to use a one more division. The division name I'm going to use division and the test 1. Okay, that's what I have done. So this is one another division what I have also insert here. So now I have to write my JavaScript. Okay, so when you have to use a document there, document. So inside the document, you will use a multiple method. Just look at this. So all these are the method you can simply use, and all these are the properties you can simply use. So if you are able to see, these are the multiple methods, and all these things you can simply use here, guys. So what method I'm gonna use? So get element. Okay, there's a multiple method to get the element from your DOM to your JavaScript. So you can simply get your element using the ID, and the ID will be the unique identity in case of your ID section. Okay, you can also get the element using the class name and the by name, tag name, and the tag name as well. So what I want to do, let's suppose I'm going to use the ID first of all. Okay, and inside this is the one actual method. When you are trying to calling a method, just you have to use a set of parentheses, and you have to pass a one argument. If you are able to see, this is a element id, and that particular id should be a string, not an integer, right? Just you have to pass that id using this inside the set of codes. What the id name I want to pass, let's suppose which id you want to fetch. First of all, you have to understand, either you can simply fetch the div1, test1, or div2. It's your choice. Let's suppose the first of all, if I want to fetch the test1, right? So what you have to write the test1 here, that's you would be able to fetch the but that particular id. Another point, if you want to store that particular id somewhere, just you can simply use this method, let x or the data, that's your choice where you want to store. So I have done this thing. Okay, save. Now if you want to check out the data, okay, what you have stored inside the data, just you can simply print on top of console this data. Okay, to understand what you have inserted inside the data, I'm gonna open the console as well. Okay, I'm gonna save my statement, guys, and now that's you are able to see. This is the one division, and the division have an id test1. You are able to fetch this particular division, and inside the division there's a multiple thing if you are able to see. Okay, just look at this. Okay, so this is a division you have fetched. Inside the division you are able to get all these things here. Let me click on this division. Okay, inside the division these are the multiple access key and identifier. Okay, and what do you want to fetch from there? If you want to fetch the inner html, that particular inner html is empty. Okay, so these are the keys, and now this is actually the object what you have fetched from here. Inside the object, these are the keys and this is a value. These are the keys and these are the values. So what key and what value you want to fetch? Let's suppose if you want to fetch the inner html, that was actually the empty right now, but if you want to fetch the inner html, then you have to use that particular key, and the key name is inner html. You know very well, right? And what you know very well, if you want to fetch any value inside the object, just you can simply use the dot method for that. And now that's a method how you would be able to fetch the value of that particular key using the key method, right? I'm gonna save again. You will get the empty string because you didn't store anything there. Okay, but the point is, let's suppose if you want to insert something inside this particular variable, just what do you need to do? Data dot inner html. Okay, and what do you want to write there? Let's suppose, hey, this is test string. I want to write this particular string there. I'm gonna save. What happened? Okay, my bad, it's not a function. Oh, that's cool. So instead of writing here, my bad, so where you have to write, actually you have to write here inner html, right? What do you want to write? Hey, what, let me go word wrap. This is sample string. Okay, and that's you are able to see. So here this is a sample string. What I have done, just I have write this particular string where I have write, so inside the test one and in which key. That's how I have written a particular string inside the DOM using this method. Now let me fetch the same thing again. Okay, you have successfully write this string, and now if you want to fetch the same thing again, so let me show you. Just give me a moment. Okay, and now let data, that's cool. And now you want to print in HTML, just you are able to see. Hey, this is a sample string, how you'll be able to fetch this. If you want to remove this, it's still work. And now if I'm going to open this, and now this is the one thing you are able to see. If you're going to check it out, the inner HTML, so the outer HTML, this is a very big node you are able to see here. This is what you are able to see, guys. This is the inner HTML of that particular element, and you have write this particular inner HTML using the JavaScript, because inside the dom.html you have written this empty. There is no string inside this, but using the DOM, using the JavaScript, you have write a one string there, and what string you have write, this is the one string you are able to see. If you want to change the style of this particular thing, you can also do multiple things. Okay, you can also change the style of the particular same thing using this method, or you can also fetch this particular element using the same method as well. So let me show all these things on top of the console. Okay, you'll be able to understand in easiest way. So what do you want to do? Let's suppose I want to fetch document dot get element, spelling mistake, my bad, get element by id, and what id I'm gonna use, let's suppose I'm gonna use a div1 id. Okay, so that's how I can simply use one. I'm gonna get this element, this is the element you have get, and inside the div1, if you're gonna check out in the inner html, actually inside the inner html you will get the one p tag, right? This is a one p tag you have written. If you're going to check out the inner text, the only text you have written the p tag one. If you want to change this particular text, so what method you want to use, just you have to use the inner. Okay, what do you want to change? Inner text. Let's suppose I want to write my name there, or I want to write the web development. Okay, so this is a method, guys, to manipulate your string using the JavaScript. So first of all, I'm trying to fetch my element using the id division1. What I want to change, I want to change the inner text of that particular element, and what I want to change, web development. What I'm going to execute, so instead of p tag 1, you would be able to see the web development there. Just look at this. That's how it works. Okay, so this is a one example. Now let me more things here. If you want to change something else, let's suppose if you want to change the style of that particular thing, so first of all let me fetch the test one instead of division1. So okay, I'm able to fetch. What do you want to do? I want to change the style. What is style you want to change? You want to change the color, right? What color you want to save? I want to mention the red color there. Okay, oh my bad, I have to change the, this is not a method. Okay, inside the, oops, okay, style and the color. Okay, I didn't use any tag there, that's why you are not able to understand. So instead of that, I can simply fetch the element. This is a multiple method you can simply use, guys. Either I can simply use this method, I can simply fetch my elements using the tag name as well. Element, okay, by tag name, which tag name I want to fetch the p tag. Okay, I can simply store. This is a 2p tag you are able to say on top of zero index. This is a p.2. Okay, I can simply fetch the zero index here. Okay, you are able to select this particular tag. What do you want to change? Style. Okay, and what thing you want to change? Let's suppose the border color or the border. Okay, and what border I want to mention there? 1 pixel solid black. That's what I need to save. Okay, this is a thing, guys. What I have done, just I have changed the border of my p tag to using the JavaScript. If you want to change the another thing, just you can simply use the same method. You can also insert the 10 pixels border using the same JavaScript. So that's a method how you would be able to manipulate your elements, how you would be able to manipulate your CSS using the same method. Just you have to understand all these things, and all these things are similar to the object. Okay, because that particular thing, if you're going to check it out, let me show you the one thing more. Document.get element by the tag name. Okay, when I'm going to mention the p tag, okay, so these are the two index. The first index is 0, the second index is length, right? These are the two keys. If you are able to see inside the two keys, these are two values, 1 and the p and p.2. So first of all, you have to decide. This is a one whole collection you are able to see. If you're going to look at, this is a whole collection. So you want this particular p2, then to fetch this particular p2, what key you have to use? 0. Okay, now if you want to fetch the 0 key here, to fetch this particular thing, just you have to use the same method, square bracket, and you have to put the 0 there. When you're gonna use this method, just if you are able to see, you would be able to fetch the whole element of the p. Okay, this is a p paragraph tag. And now what you want to do, let's suppose you want to add the style there. This is the one style I have added. If you want to add more style there, just you can simply do all these things using the same method. So that's how it works. Okay, all these are the elements. If you want to change anything else, if you want to do anything else, just you have to use the keys name, and you would be able to manipulate all these things using the JavaScript.